or if they've got the grapes, as they say. Robin legacy, right? What the importance of Robin is to Batman. Look at Batman through the lens of the Robins. Stop it. Somebody hire me. I'm the idea man. We could work this all out. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Panels on Pages podcast. My name is Dalibor, and I am the indie hype man. However, today we're talking mainstream. We're talking The Flash. And let me tell you, folks, I don't think The Flash is going to reset the DCEU. Now, I know what you're thinking. James Gunn said it was going to reset the universe. How could you possibly think that? Here are a couple reasons I think this is not a true reboot. Now, when I'm talking about a reboot, I'm talking about a full franchise reboot where you are starting fresh, clean slate, no previous elements involved. We don't have that going in, and we already know that. Let's look at a couple reboots from our recent history. The Dark Knight trilogy, complete reboot of the Batman franchise. Guess what? Not a single element from the previous Joel Schumacher or Tim Burton movies, and of course, not a single element from the 1950s and 1960s movies and TV shows. So, complete franchise reboot, just like it was when it was the Keaton Batman, the Tim Burton Batman. That was a complete reboot. We had nothing, no elements from the previous iteration, which was, I think at that point, the 1960s Batman TV series. No continuing characters, no continuing storylines, nothing was the same. And in all takes, it was a different approach to the source material. Also, let's take a look at Ghostbusters. Now, that was a failed reboot, right? We went back to the original franchise and we're ignoring the reboot, but there was a reboot attempt and they completely ignored the previous storyline. Now, there were some little jabs, little cameos and things like that, but those weren't the same characters. Now, I think they could have just said it was the same characters and they could have just continued the same story. I actually think that some of those jabs and little jokes would have made an even better impact. I mean, I Ain't Afraid of No Ghosts would have been great if you knew that was the same guy that used to hunt ghosts. Like, he's not afraid of no ghosts, you know? However, in execution, that's not what happened, right? Those were new characters in a new scenario. Ghostbusting was a new thing. It was not something that was being rediscovered, as we saw with the, I don't even remember what it was called, Ghostbusters Resurgence or something like that? Whatever the new one was with the grandkids. I thought that was great. It's a fantastic movie. And I actually just saw, somebody was vlogging, I forget who it was, but they were shooting a new one. So the next one's coming out. So I'm actually really glad about that. I didn't even realize I was that attached to that franchise until I saw Egon's spirit show up at the end. And I was like, right? Just tears. It was great. It was a great movie. And I'm glad they're getting to do another one. So that is a continuation, right? That's I don't even want to call it a soft reboot. That is just a continuation. That is just a new generation, right? The Fuller Houses, the Girl Meets Worlds, the iCarlys of it all, right? It's a continuation versus a reboot. A reboot is a clean slate. For instance, another series that I thought could have been easily connected to the previous iteration was Charmed, right? The new Charmed, also a great series, but had no continuing elements from the previous show. There were no continuing characters, there were no continuing storylines, everything was new. That's why I think The Flash is not actually a reboot. Now, I know they're saying it's resetting the universe. I think it's really, honestly, not even an original crisis, right? When talking DC, there's a lot of crises, there's a lot of different things to talk about. When I say crisis reboot, I'm talking back to basics, original Crisis, 1984, I believe it was. Maybe it was 89, something between one of those two. That was one of the few true reboots in DC history. Everything since, even though the New 52 was technically a reboot, it still continued a bunch of the stories from the previous iteration, right? If you look at especially Batman, like they were kind of like, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and you could just pretend that it all happened in a more condensed time frame. So like Red Hood still happened, Damian still happened, like the same way that we already read it, it just happened in a much shorter time frame, which I actually thought made Batman like an even worse person in the New 52 than he was prior to that, because like he ran through like 5-6 Robins or whatever in the course of 5 years, which is wild. But there are many problems with the New 52, and we can absolutely talk about that in another episode. But that, even after Rebirth and after all the convergences and all those things, even that is just a continuation. It was just like a reshuffle, like, let's just mix things up, see how it comes out. Nobody likes it? All right, never happened, right? We're back to the original timeline. We're back to everything still happened. The New 52 stuff happened, but like, kind of mixed in with everything else. Like, it didn't really happen. Like, I think besides some of the characters that have made it through, the New 52 basically didn't happen at this point. So that's like a microcosm. It was a whole, I mean, the major fault of all of that was editorial. What The Flash is shaping up to be is more like the Secret Wars event at Marvel in 2015, right? Yeah, did it like end some stuff? Absolutely. You know, the Ultimate Universe, for the most part, gone, done for. Right, you had some remnants, you had some leftovers. Miles made his way over into the primary universe. But like, besides some remnants, there was no more that universe. There was no Aunt May from that universe, right? She's not walking around somewhere. There's not two Aunt Mays. That was like a cleanup, right? You're gonna get rid of some elements. You're gonna take some elements and continue them onward, and then just like write new stuff, right? So we got Peter Parker was dating Mockingbird, which was on no one's radar. 0 people had that on their radar, but here it was, right? Different scenarios, but they were the same people, if you will. So we know that that's happening, right? We know that we're going to get a Peacemaker season 2. We know we're getting a Waller show starring the wonderful Viola Davis, which I think no one should ever take that role away from her. And if they do, it should be by right of combat only, and like in the next most powerful Waller can take over. That's the only way I think the Waller role should be passed on, because she is murdering that role. I love it. Obviously, we have Aquaman happening after The Flash, which there's no way around that one, right? That's the same dude. That's continuing the previous storyline. Supposedly, they even put Amber Heard's scenes back in. Wild. The DC is just going wild. They're like, we're not canceling anyone. No. You got charges against you? Nah. Get on the red carpet. Get on the red carpet, Ezra. You got charges? Forget that. Get on the red carpet. Yeah, no, that's a different conversation. We're just going to stick to the stories. I think what we're getting out of this, I mean, if I'm lucky, and if we're all really lucky, we're going to get the CW Superman into this universe. I would love that. I'd love that in more ways than is describable. At least in some sort of cameo. I would love to see him in main. I think he does an excellent job. I think that is the best Superman we've had on screen ever. Honestly, that's my opinion. You can fight me on that. But we're going to get a new Superman. We're most likely getting a new Batman. I mean, based on taking things at face value, Ben Affleck definitely said he's not interested in the direction they're heading, so he's no longer involved. So regardless of if it's a continuing story, we're not going to get Ben Affleck. So it's going to look a little different, right? Maybe he's going to be a little younger, or whatever is going to be happening. We're going to see how it shakes out, but we're getting a new Batman, right? And we're also getting an entire Bat family. You know, is it going to be in, like, are we going to have a reference to Jason being dead? Are we going to have a reference to Dick Grayson being Nightwing already? You know, have maybe some sort of flashback sequence where we talk about the original Robins. Is Tim Drake going to be in it? I love me some Tim Drake. Tim Drake is one of my favorite characters, possibly my favorite DC character. I really haven't thought about this in a long time. Yeah, he might be. He might actually be. I'm Team Red Robin forever, though. None of you Redbird folks out there, you're not Tim Drake fans. But my point is, we know we're getting Damian, right? Are we going to get the broader scope of the Bat family? Now, it was implied, but he said Damian, right? He brought up Damian specifically, so we're getting Damian, but are we going to get more of that? While that could very easily happen still within the same time frame, because our Batman here clearly had a Robin that died, so there's evidence of a Bat family, we just haven't seen it yet in the DCEU, but that means that this could easily be a continuation. Or it could be a fresh start, and we're gonna just have this already established, and we're gonna skip the build-up origins phase. At least for now. There's always the possibility of flashback movies will always exist. Let's be serious. Oh, this is what happened back then. Like the real game of chess here would be to give us like modern stories, right? You know, it's called Superman Legacy. Maybe Lois is about to give birth, right? Maybe this is the moment where he's like, well, I really need to like reconnect with my roots and like, you know, reclaim my humanity. And then we're like, why? What's been going on? And then we flash back in the next movie as we find out that Superman's been just like doing these massive big saves, huge things, massive events, and he's been away from home. He's been distanced from humanity, right? That's just a guess. I don't know anything. I don't have any ins. I don't have any inside information. That's just a guess. But what I'm saying is the possibility of a flashback type scenario where, you know, we see them in the now, if you will, and then the next movie is like, oh, Batman year one, right? Here's what happened. Or if they've got the grapes, as they say, we see Robin year one. And we look at Dick Grayson or, Robin legacy. Psh, let's talk about a Robin legacy, right? What the importance of Robin is to Batman. Look at Batman through the lens of the Robin. So stop it. Somebody hire me. I'm the idea man. We could work this all out. Anyway, the point, to get back to it, is that we do not have any actual evidence that there is going to be a clean slate. They haven't even said that Ezra Miller isn't going to be the Flash going forward. So that means that at the very least, if nobody else reprises their role, even though we know they're going to, even though we know that Margot Robbie has already basically been given the green light to continue as Harley, even though if we didn't know any of that, if we didn't know any other character was going to be continuing, the fact that they did not say this is the last outing for Ezra Miller as the Flash, that simply means that we have at least one element that is continuing from the previous iteration. Again, we know that it is way more than one. It is, a handful. I mean, it's a literal handful. We've got 5 or 6 people that are continuing forward. That, to me, is not a reboot. If they were to say, hey, we're doing a new Jurassic Park movie, but none of the previous characters are going to be there, none of the previous storylines are going to be followed, we're just resetting it, starting it with a brand new theme park, we're not even putting it on different islands. That's not a continuation. There's no way that's a continuation. But if you were to say, hey, we're making a new Jurassic Park movie, it's set 10 years after the world became essentially cohabitated by dinosaurs, yeah, I'm interested in that. I got questions about that. Let's see where the future of this goes. I'm interested in that. But again, that's a continuation. Even if you take out all the characters and you say this just takes place 20 years later, none of the previous characters are going to be in it, none of the previous actors are going to be in it, but it takes place 20 years later, that is a continuation. I mean, for those familiar with the Super Sentai / Power Ranger franchises, those are prime examples of continuations while discarding previous elements, right? You look at everything after, after Space, I think. Everything after Space, you got new characters, new everything, and then once in a while you get a cameo, right? But new characters, new powers, new Zords, new leader, new location. We went from in space to a lost galaxy, and then we went light speed, and then we met back in time. You got a little bit of crossover, a little touch of the previous, right? Hey, by the way, it's just a reminder this takes place in the same world, all right? Let's say in a Jurassic Park franchise that said, 20 years after whatever, cool. We just, as we roll by, we see a herd of velociraptors, all with blue stripes. We know what's going on. We don't need to know their names. We don't need to know their adventure, but we just know, hey, that's Blue's clan, maybe, It's like an identifier. It's an identifier, gives us a little flashback. We see a book written by Dr. Ian Malcolm. Little things that are just like, oh yeah, this is in the same world. But with the Flash and the DCU going forward, we have a ton of examples of that happening. So it's the same universe. This might be a reshuffle, but a damn showing no reboot. Well, that's all I've got to say on this subject. If you have any thoughts on this, if you want to fight me on it, if you want to agree with me, at Indie Hype Man on Twitter, at Indie Hype Man on YouTube, and at Indie Hype Man on TikTok. Come see me, come find me. I will gladly argue with you about silly things on the internet. That's like 15% of my personality at this point. I'm lining up a couple interviews. We got a new issue of Catalyst dropping July. I'm going to say 1st. We're going to see how I do, but July 1st to the 15th at some point. We're going to be dropping a new issue for sure. I'm having some ideas on how to proceed, so we're gonna see. I got some things rattling around. I've got a couple people that I'm already talking to about features. Plenty of content for you guys, so make sure you're subscribed. It's a private mailing list. It only hits you when you sign up and every time a new issue comes out, which is quarterly at this point. So you're not getting any kind of mass emails every other day. It's truly just for the magazine. It's truly just for me to promote indie creators and indie stories. By the way, watching the Vactorverse, what up, V? I've been workshopping a little bit of an outro. I'd fill it in with like a relevant kickback to what the episode was about, so hear me out on this. Make sure you check out your local comic shop and ask them what their favorite Flash comic is. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next one. Joe boy, that's a Heath Ledger. Y'all always lame. I compete better. Look, bet the over and I hammer that. I don't disappear when the camera flash. Man, and y'all Harley win. She wanna ride my dick like a motorcycle. That's a Harley Quinn.